but a variety of potential impacts. And then largely the approach, and this is, this is guided primarily by the sort of excellent folks at Adaptation International. They're really, really good at coordinating these kind of processes. Those are essentially presented to communities. They sit, we have a project team that sits down with maps and sits down with the information and starts to work through and identify specific vulnerabilities. So I think that we can do that because we're working at a relatively small spatial scale. Where I've seen those kind of vulnerability indexes used or indices used is on somewhat larger spatial scales. Although that being said, it would be an interesting approach to consider. One I hadn't really considered before, but it would be an interesting approach to try to think about how to do that. The ones that I have seen oftentimes try to take into account things like erosion, at least in terms of sea level rise impacts. And again, on this coast, we have very limited information about things like shoreline erosion, historical erosion. So at least the way that I would view putting together an index, I think it'd be somewhat data limited. But that being said, it's a really interesting idea and one that would be an interesting way to sort of consolidate information and present it to a community.
Awesome. Looks like we have time for one more question here. So this one is on the Sea Grant Community Resiliency Index. Can you speak about that, and do you know if any of these community-based sea level rise projections have been incorporated into that index?
They haven't. What you're seeing here, at least the slide we're looking at, this is a current project, and so it hasn't been incorporated. This is fresh off the shelf, so it hasn't as of yet.
Okay, awesome. Oh, and okay, one more question here real quick. For the maps you make, are you using LiDAR data, and what resolution of that elevation data are you using?
Oh, great question. Yes, we are using LiDAR data, and if we can, most of the communities that we mapped here were mapped using